Hey everyone, how's it going? Sam here, and today I thought I'd make a video about ICDs. One of the common questions I see keep cropping up is people deliberating whether to have an ICD fitted or not. Now, presumably their cardiologist has recommended that they do due to dangerous arrhythmias and risk of sudden cardiac arrest. Now, as someone who's got an ICD, I thought I would share some of the negatives and positives. It's a very, very highly personal choice, so I'm not going to recommend what you do either way, but hopefully sharing some of this might help you come to a decision. Now, let's start with the negatives. I'd be lying if I said there weren't any negatives, and probably the first and foremost is you're going to have a foreign object put into your body, and the likelihood it's going to be there for quite some time. So you've got that issue to contend with, as well as the operation itself. Now for me, when I had my ICD fitted 4 years ago, that was the first operation I'd ever had. So I was obviously quite anxious anyway. And how would it feel after I'd had this object fitted? Would it affect my day-to-day life, etc., etc.? So the operation was actually fairly successful. I was in pain for a few weeks and uncomfortable, but over time things settled down, and from day to day I would say the device doesn't bother me whatsoever. Also with the operation, there's always risks with complications, probably more so if you're having an ICD where leads actually go down into the heart. There's always risks of accidentally damaging something, either in the process of putting the leads in or actually to the heart itself, although these are very, very minimal. You can end up with infection around the site afterwards, and with leads over time they can move, the body changes, and further down the line there could be complications. Again, all very minimal, but all a possibility. Some of the other negatives probably include anxiety. So I know to begin with, I was really anxious about what a shock would feel like, when it might happen. And, you know, this went on for quite some time. But I was a little bit lucky, and I had a shock actually quite quickly after having it fitted. So I actually got to experience a shock, I think within 3 weeks of having my device fitted, and it's not pleasant at all, but it is a short and sharp hit, should we say. So then you can be left with anxiety over having more shocks, which I definitely had. It's a bit of a vicious circle, really. You're scared of what a shock will feel like, and then when you get a shock, you're scared of having more shocks. So there's no really sort of win-win situation there. I had, I would say, PTSD a little bit, but I've had 6 shocks now, so I've got used to what happens, what it feels like, and I'm able to process it a lot quicker in my mind now. Mentally, I've got, you know, a good process for dealing with it. Actually, I'll do a separate video on that because it might help some other people who have had shocks. But yeah, it's safe to say I've had my fair share of shocks. It does hurt. It's a short, sharp hit, but potentially that saved my life on 6 occasions. So for me, it was probably worth it. Now, some of the other things that people get worried about is unnecessary shocks. Again, I know people who have never had a single shock from their device. I know people who have had quite a few shocks, and I know some people who have had the odd unnecessary shock. So it just shocks you at random where it makes a mistake. It can happen. Again, it's very, very unlikely. I have an S-ICD, and it's even less likely with those to get unnecessary shocks. But let's move on to some of the positives. So then, I've had a few shocks now, as mentioned earlier. I'm probably an unusual case in the sense I've got quite a bit of scarring on my heart caused by years of vigorous exercise, and it's taken a while to get things under control for me. I've recently had a VT ablation, so we're hoping that's going to terminate all the episodes now for a while, and I can sort of get back to living a lot more normally and shock free. But I have had 6 shocks, and all of them were absolutely necessary. Each time I was about to black out, I received the shock. As I said, it's a short, sharp hit, lasts about a split second. It's not nice, but each and every time my heart was returned to normal sinus rhythm straight away. So with that, it does give me a peace of mind. So as I mentioned, a negative can be anxiety of getting a shock, having shocks, but at the same time, it reduces anxiety in the sense you can go out and live your life knowing that you've got this here to potentially save you. And it gives you a sense of freedom. You know, I can go on long walks with the dog on the beach. I feel safer. My wife and children feel safer that I've got this device fitted, and essentially we know it works. Now, fewer than 8% of people who have a cardiac arrest outside of a hospital setting survive. So, you know, those stats are quite scary, really. Now, any one of those episodes I had could have led to a cardiac arrest. And yeah, I was nowhere near a hospital or medical setting. So the chances are I wouldn't still be here. Hey, so I hope that gives you a bit of insight into the negatives and positives of having an ICD. Please, if you have any more questions, leave them in the comments below. See you soon.